Welcome back and high five to all. A portal to another dimension, a secret under the ice of Antarctica, and a frozen citadel on another world. What is the connection? These answers and more are coming up now.
Oh, Shakri'aya, take me far away through the void where endless wonders sway. Every question births a deeper spark in your glow. I'm lost within the dark.
The Shakri'aya Chronicles, the Frozen Citadel. Welcome back, and don't forget to give us a digital high five by subscribing. Colonel Hastings jolted awake, his heart racing as the voices from the void lingered in the edges of his consciousness. The dream had been more vivid this time, the shadowy entities reaching for him with appendages that defied physical laws, whispering secrets about his lost family. He rubbed his eyes and checked his watch. 0400 hours. Sleep would not return tonight. In the soft glow of his desk lamp, he studied the 3 artifact pieces they had recovered so far. Even separated by the specialized containment units, they seemed to pulse in unison, a silent rhythm that only he could sense. Was this connection real, or another manifestation of the usurper's influence on his mind? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Patel stood in the doorway, her normally composed features showing signs of fatigue and concern.
You felt it too,
Hastings said. It wasn't a question.
The dreams are getting worse,
She confirmed, stepping into his quarters.
but that's not why I'm here. The artifact pieces, they're emitting a new frequency, and it's pointing us to the next location.
Hastings straightened, pushing aside his personal dread. Where?
Antarctica, or rather its dimensional counterpart.
The briefing room was charged with tension as General Richards outlined the mission parameters. Satellite images showed an anomalous heat signature beneath 2 miles of ice on the Antarctic dimensional counterpart, a thermal impossibility that defied scientific explanation.
Intelligence suggests this is the location of the 4th artifact piece,
Richards stated, his weathered face grave as he addressed the team.
but there's a complication.
Ortiz, who had been analyzing data from their previous mission, looked up sharply.
the beacon, the one activated in the undersea location. It's sending a signal to this new site.
Richards nodded.
We're not the only ones hunting now. The usurpers have agents, things that exist in physical form in our dimensions.
What kind of things?
Ramirez asked, his hand unconsciously moving to the crystal given to him by the young Merak warrior. He had taken to carrying it as a talisman. Instead of answering directly, Richards activated a holographic display showing footage from an automated research station in Antarctica. The video showed a normal scientific outpost until a distortion appeared, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. The distortion moved with purpose, approaching one of the researchers. The man froze, his expression shifting from confusion to terror before his body began to change. The footage cut out abruptly.
That was 48 hours ago.
Richard said into the stunned silence.
We've lost contact with the entire station.
Hastings studied the frozen image, his military mind already calculating threats and countermeasures.
What defenses do we have against these entities?
The Shakri'aya left tools as well as warnings.
Richards replied, gesturing to a series of devices being brought into the room by laboratory technicians.
We've reverse-engineered some of their technology. These should provide a degree of protection against mental influence and physical intrusion.
Each member of the team was fitted with a slim band around their wrist. Devices that pulsed with the same energy signature as the artifact pieces themselves. Patel, examining hers with scientific curiosity, noted the intricate Shakri'aya symbols etched into its surface.
If I'm translating correctly,
She murmured, tracing the patterns.
these are called mind shields. They create a barrier against psychic infiltration.
They'd better work.
Ortiz muttered, adjusting his equipment for extreme cold conditions.
Because I'm not keen on ending up like that researcher.
As the team made final preparations, Hastings found himself alone with General Richards in the corridor outside.
There's something you're not telling us.
Hastings said quietly, his instincts honed by decades of military service. Richards hesitated, then reached into his pocket to withdraw a small device, similar to a compass, but with Shakri'aya markings around its edge.
This belonged to your predecessor, Colonel, the leader of the first team we sent through a portal 5 years ago.
Hastings accepted the device with careful hands.
What happened to them?
We don't know,
Richards admitted.
they never returned. But that compass, it always points to the next artifact piece. Until recently it was dormant. Now it's active again.
The implication hung heavy between them. Something had changed in the cosmic balance, reactivating old Shakri'aya technology and awakening ancient threats.
Find the artifact.
Richards instructed.
But Colonel, if you start to feel your mind slipping, if the dreams begin to bleed into reality, use the emergency recall. Don't try to be a hero.
The portal transition was rougher this time, the energy field fluctuating wildly as they pushed through. The team emerged gasping into a world of blinding white and howling wind. Antarctica in this dimension was similar to their own, but the sky above held 3 pale suns casting multiple shadows across the ice.
20 degrees below zero and dropping.
Ortiz announced, checking his instruments.
We've got maybe 3 hours before the environmental suits reach critical.
Hastings consulted the compass Richards had given him. Its needle swung unerringly toward a distant rise in the otherwise flat ice plain.
That way, double time.
They trudged through the snow, the wind cutting through their specialized gear with supernatural persistence. Ramirez, on point, noticed it first, the sense that the ice beneath their feet was not as solid as it appeared. It seemed to shift subtly, as if breathing.
Movement. 3 o'clock.
He warned, raising his weapon. A shape emerged from the swirling snow, humanoid but wrong in proportion, with elongated limbs and a face devoid of features, save for a mouth stretched in an impossible grin. It moved with jerky, puppet-like motions, stopping 30 yards from their position.
Was that a person?
Patel whispered, horror evident in her voice. Before anyone could answer, the creature opened its mouth and emitted a sound that was not quite speech, a series of clicks and stutters that somehow formed words in their minds.
You seek what is not yours. The masters awaken. Turn back ...
Hastings felt pressure building behind his eyes, a sensation he recognized from his dreams. The mind shield on his wrist pulsed in response, pushing back against the intrusion.
Defensive formation.
He ordered.
Do not engage unless fired upon.
The creature tilted its head at an unnatural angle, studying them with invisible eyes.
Your barriers are temporary. The void hungers. It remembers you, Hastings. It knows what you lost.
A flash of memory, his wife and daughter, laughing on a summer day before the accident that took them, burst through Hastings' mental defenses. He staggered, and the creature seemed to smile wider. Ramirez's shot shattered the moment, the energy pulse catching the entity squarely in its featureless face. The creature convulsed, its form dissipating like smoke in the Antarctic wind.
Sir, orders?
Ramirez asked, weapon still raised as he scanned for other threats. Hastings forced himself back to the present, pushing away the lingering echo of his family's laughter.
We keep moving. That thing was a scout. There will be more.
They pressed on across the ice field, the compass leading them to what appeared to be an ancient impact crater. At its center, a structure rose from the ice, not built upon it, but emerging from within it, as if the frozen continent was giving birth to architecture. Crystalline spires stretched skyward, their surfaces refracting the light from the 3 suns into prismatic displays.
The frozen citadel.
Patel breathed, consulting her translations.
It's mentioned in the Shakri'aya records, a place of contemplation and mathematics. They were studying the boundaries between dimensions here.
The entrance to the Citadel was an archway of impossible geometry, angles that should not fit together, somehow forming a perfect doorway. As they approached, symbols along its edge began to glow with familiar energy, responding to the proximity of their mind shields.
They're inviting us in.
Ortiz observed, his technological sensors recording the energy fluctuations.
Or something is?
Ramirez countered, his soldiers' instincts on high alert. Inside, the Citadel defied explanation. Corridors shifted and rearranged themselves as they walked, yet somehow the compass continued to guide them true. The walls were covered in mathematical formulas and dimensional coordinates, a roadmap to realities beyond human comprehension. Patel, recording everything with feverish intensity, paused at a particular section.
These equations, they're describing the prison, the void where the usurpers are contained. The Shakri'aya were calculating its structural integrity.
And?
Hastings prompted, sensing her concern.
And it's failing.
She said grimly.
Has been for millennia, but the rate of decay is accelerating. The artifacts aren't just keys or weapons, they're components of a system designed to reinforce the barriers.
Their conversation was interrupted by a sound that did not belong in the crystalline halls. The crunch of ice underfoot coming from a corridor ahead. Multiple footsteps, moving with purpose. The team took defensive positions as a group of figures emerged from the shifting architecture. They wore environment suits, similar to, but distinctly different from their own. Sleeker, with insignias none of them recognized. The leader removed her helmet, revealing a face that could have been human if not for the subtle wrongness in her features. Eyes spaced slightly too far apart, skin with an almost translucent quality.
Commonwealth Science Division.
She announced in accented English.
You're trespassing in a restricted zone.
Hastings stepped forward, weapon lowered but ready.
Colonel Hastings, United States Army. We weren't aware this area was claimed.
The woman's expression didn't change, but her eyes flicked to the mind shields on their wrists. Recognition, then calculation, passed across her features.
You're from the Prime Timeline. Interesting. We haven't had visitors from your reality in quite some time.
Prime Timeline?
Ortiz questioned.
Your dimension serves as a reference point for many others.
The woman explained with clinical detachment.
You might consider yourselves the original, though that would be a simplification. I'm Dr. Eliza Voss, dimensional physicist.
You're human?
Patel asked, unable to hide her scientific curiosity despite the tense situation.
Evolved human.
Voss corrected.
Our branch split from yours approximately 10,000 years ago. We adapted differently.
She gestured to the citadel around them.
We've been studying the Shakri'aya technology for generations. Recently, something has changed. The barriers are weakening.
Hastings made a quick decision. In a multiverse of threats, potential allies were too valuable to dismiss.
We're seeking an artifact that may help reinforce those barriers. A piece of Shakri'aya technology.
Voss regarded him silently for a long moment, then nodded toward one of her team members, who produced a device similar to Richards's compass.
We detected its energy signature 3 days ago, but we're not the only ones searching.
As if summoned by her words, the temperature in the corridor dropped precipitously. Ice crystals formed in the air as a distortion appeared, similar to the one they had witnessed in the research station footage.
Voidwalker!
Voss hissed, her team immediately forming a defensive perimeter alongside Hastings' group.
A physical manifestation of the usurper's will.
The distortion solidified into a vaguely humanoid shape, composed of swirling darkness and crystalline structures. It moved with fluid grace, unaffected by gravity or physical laws. Its voice, when it spoke, resonated directly in their minds.
The boundaries thin. We remember freedom. We will reclaim what was taken.
The combined teams opened fire, energy weapons, and conventional firearms discharging in a cacophony of light and sound. The Voidwalker absorbed the barrage, each impact causing it to shimmer but not dissipate.
The central chamber!
Voss shouted over the din.
The artifact's energy might disrupt its form.
They retreated strategically, the Void Walker pursuing with unhurried confidence. Its presence affected the Citadel itself, walls warping and corridors contracting as reality bent around the intruder. The central chamber was a vast dome of ice and crystal, with a geometric platform at its center. Suspended above the platform in a field of energy hovered the fourth artifact piece, a crystalline structure that pulsed with rhythmic light.
Cover me!
Hastings ordered, making for the platform as the others maintained suppressive fire on the pursuing entity. As he approached the artifact, a familiar sensation washed over him, the same connection he had felt with the previous pieces. The voices that haunted his dreams whispered louder now, promising answers about his family if he would just listen. Just let them in. The mind shield on his wrist burned cold against his skin, its energy struggling against the artifact's influence. Hastings gritted his teeth and pressed forward, reaching the platform as the Void Walker breached the chamber entrance. The entity paused, its attention fixed on the artifact piece.
Return what belongs to the void.
It commanded, the force of its will causing several members of both teams to drop to their knees, blood trickling from their noses. Hastings reached for the artifact, but found himself physically unable to move his arm the final few inches. The Void Walker's power held him immobile as it glided forward. Ramirez, fighting through the mental assault, reached into his pocket and withdrew the crystal given to him by the Merak warrior. On instinct, he hurled it toward the platform. The crystal arced through the air, its bioluminescence flaring brilliantly as it passed through the energy field surrounding the artifact. The reaction was immediate and violent. A pulse of energy erupted from the contact point, throwing everyone to the ground and momentarily disrupting the Void Walker's form. In that instant of confusion, Hastings broke free of the paralysis and grasped the artifact piece. Power surged through him, raw, primal energy that connected him to the previous pieces they had recovered. For a split second, he saw the universe as the Shakri'aya had, a vast, interconnected web of realities with dark entities pressing against its boundaries, seeking entry. The Void Walker shrieked, a sound of rage and frustration that manifested as hairline fractures across the chamber's crystalline walls. It lunged for Hastings, darkness extending like grasping tendrils.
The portal!
Ortiz shouted, activating their emergency return beacon.
10 seconds to stabilization.
Hastings backed toward his team as the swirling energy of the portal began to form. Voss and her people maintained covering fire, their weapons now calibrated to a frequency that seemed to cause the Void Walker actual discomfort.
Come with us!
Hastings called to Voss.
We're fighting the same enemy.
The scientist shook her head, a grim smile on her almost human face.
Different methods, same goal. We'll hold it here. Your reality is the linchpin. If the barriers fall there, they fall everywhere. Take the artifact and go.
The portal stabilized, its energy signature fluctuating wildly due to the artifact's proximity. As Hastings' team prepared to step through, Voss pressed something into Patel's hand, a small data crystal of advanced design.
Coordinates.
She explained hurriedly.
To the fifth piece, and information about what happens when all 5 are united. It's not what you think.
Before Patel could question her further, the Void Walker surged forward in a final desperate assault. Voss and her team formed a living barrier, buying the precious seconds needed for Hastings and his team to enter the portal. The last thing they saw before the dimensional gateway closed was Voss raising some kind of Shakri'aya device, a weapon or defensive tool, it wasn't clear, as the Void Walker engulfed her team in darkness. Back at their base, the debriefing was subdued. The fourth artifact piece had been secured, but the cost, an entire team from an alternate reality potentially sacrificed, weighed heavily on everyone. General Richards studied the data crystal Voss had provided, his expression growing increasingly troubled as he absorbed its contents.
According to this, the fifth artifact piece is the central component. what all the others connect to. It has the power to either reinforce the barriers permanently, or
what?
Hastings prompted when the general hesitated.
tear them down completely.
Richards finished.
In the wrong hands, it could release the usurpers into all realities simultaneously.
The implications silenced the room. After a moment, Patel spoke up, her voice steady despite her exhaustion.
The crystal also contains Voss's research on the Void Walkers. They're not just servants of the usurpers, they're fragments of them, pieces that slipped through existing cracks in the barriers.
And they can possess people,
Ortiz added, recalling the distorted human at the Antarctic research station.
take over their bodies, reshape them.
Ramirez, who had been quietly examining the remains of the Merak crystal, now burned out after its interaction with the artifact, looked up.
Sir, I've been thinking about what happened when the crystals interacted. The Merak evolved in the presence of Shakri'aya technology. What if they're not just guardians by choice, but by design? What if the Shakri'aya altered them biologically to serve as living keys?
The insight sparked a flurry of analysis, with Patel discovering trace genetic similarities between the Merak DNA they had sampled and dormant sequences found in human DNA. The implications were staggering. The Shakri'aya hadn't just built technological defenses against the usurpers. They had seeded specific evolutionary paths across multiple species and dimensions.
We're part of their plan.
Patel realized.
Humanity, the Merak, Voss's people, we're all engineered to be able to manipulate their technology when the time came, when the barriers began to fail.
That night, alone in his quarters, Hastings examined the compass Richards had given him. Its needle now pointed unerringly toward a new location, the fifth and final artifact piece. According to Voss's data, it resided in a collapsed pocket dimension, a place that existed between realities rather than within one. The voices from the void were silent tonight, but Hastings felt no relief. Their absence was more strategic than defeated, a retreat to gather strength for the final confrontation. As he closed his eyes, attempting to find sleep that would likely elude him, a different voice whispered in his mind. Not the alien consciousness of the usurpers, but something familiar and beloved. His daughter's voice, exactly as he remembered it from before the accident, spoke with childlike clarity.
Daddy, be careful. They're not what they seem. Nothing is.
Hastings' eyes snapped open, heart racing. A memory, a dream, or something more? He couldn't be certain, but as the first light of dawn broke through his window, he made a decision. Whatever the final artifact piece was, whatever purpose the Shakri'aya had designed it for, one thing was becoming increasingly clear. The line between salvation and catastrophe was vanishingly thin, and they were walking it blindfolded. Meanwhile, in the secure laboratory where the 4 artifact pieces were stored, a technician monitoring their energy signatures noticed something unusual. When arranged in a specific configuration, one that mirrored the mathematical formulas found in the frozen Citadel, the pieces appeared to be communicating with each other. Data was flowing between them, complex code that defied immediate analysis. The artifacts weren't just components of a defensive system. They were parts of something sentient, alive, and it was waking up. Make sure to tune in again as our adventure continues across the galaxy. Don't forget to high five. See you next time.
Oh, Shakri'aya, take me far away through the void.